I still prefer to look at myself as a gay woman. I find that phrase makes me feel good. It makes me feel empowered. Lesbian doesn't necessarily make me feel bad or good. I'm also a lesbian, quite obviously. Last I looked in the mirror anyway. But but gay woman is what I'm most comfortable with. And I guess ultimately that's what labels are. Is what are you most comfortable with?
Hello, my name is Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. My guest on this week's show is Barb Snelgrove, a radio presenter for Queer Radio Vancouver, an inductee in the Canadian Queer Hall of Fame, and the owner of megamouthmedia, a boutique media relations firm. She is also a lifelong Vancouverite, and I had to look that up because I thought it might be Vancouverite, but it's not, it's Vancouverite. And she has seen the queer scene shift and change since she first started going out as an underage teen. We first got up to talk about a gay bar called the Odyssey, but surprise, surprise, we ended up veering wildly off topic and talked about a whole number of other things. But don't worry, it's all still gold. We talked all about the evolving Vancouver queer scene, our mixed feelings towards hen parties in queer spaces, and Barb kindly informs me what a Gurgle room is.
It's kind of contradictory in my head, depending on my mood, because, we have been excluded for so long that we need to be inclusive. And I have no problems with welcoming straight people into bars. I've, brought them to queer bars myself. But, back then, it's a lot easier now, but I still think that the problem is that until such time as two gay men can go into a straight bar and, make out in the corner without the threat of violence or getting turfed out. How is that fair? It's like queer bars as being places of sanctuary, and everything that we see as queer people every single day in billboards, radio, television, magazines, everywhere you go, it is a straight world. And so you kind of just want to go to a bar to be around your own folks and peeps, and without having that shoved down your throat, which is kind of ironic to say because that's usually what they're saying about us, right? It's like, good Lord. It's like, I don't care if they're gay, but do they have to shove it down my throat?
Well, I think it's the thing that there's a problem for me in it all is that it is a bit like being treated like you're the zoo. You're the animals in the zoo, or
yes,
that they're
absolutely.
on a safari, and that you're their thrill for the evening, going and seeing you in your natural habitat. And that's kind of where it gets a bit icky for me.
Yeah, and this, again, I fluctuate back and forth on it. I mean, I'm a firm believer that we do need to be inclusive. But having said that, with so few queer spaces in Vancouver, for instance, back then there was more, but with so few queer spaces and with so many straight bars, we can't go to yours and feel safe and included a lot of the time. So, you're coming to our bars, or straight people coming to our bars. There's that lineup I was referring to, where there's gay people standing outside waiting to get into one of the few spaces that they can be comfortable and enjoy, and they're having to wait in line because a bunch of straight girls are having a shower, a bridal shower in the bar, and hooping and hollering, and And personally, they'll get, if there's, and again, I'm certainly not speaking about every heterosexual that goes to a gay bar.
Oh no, do it. Just
do it.
Blanket statement.
And I have so many amazing heterosexual friends.
Some of my best friends are heterosexual.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I like to call them user friendlies, right? They're user friendly. As always says, well, that is user friendly. Is that they're allies, and it's never an issue. And they aren't with me. I go by head and heart. I don't give a rat's proverbial ass about what color you are, what gender preference you have. If I love you and can trust you, and there's loyalty there and friendship and camaraderie, then I'm all for it. And I'll be the hypocrite and I'll bring them to the bar. But when there's a straight couple in the corner macking, just sucking each other's faces off, and you can see it in some of the people that are there. And there may be people that's triggering for because they got fag bashed. There's just, so it's a long conversation. And again, it's, I'm not for it. I'm not against.
It's a tricky quagmire.
Yeah. If there was the equalization, and if gay people didn't have any problems going to straight bars and feeling safe, I'd be less questioning in terms of it.
Well, we haven't solved that.
No, and we never will, because again, it's my rational self and my heart, and I have no problems with shared spaces as long as everybody is comfortable.
And I think that's the thing, that in cultivating a culture in a space and in setting ground rules and having the expectation that everyone signs up to it, it's so hard because there's so many small ways that people can compromise that culture, and then it just becomes really tricky to call out.
It's being respectful in an environment, because again, when it comes to queer bars, the difference between a queer bar and a straight bar is that this is a community space. Whether or not alcohol is involved, for so many years, it was the only space where we could gather and gather with, again, like-minded individuals and have strength in numbers and shared experiences. Some is wonderful, some is fun, some is happy, some is traumatic, but at least you can go to that safe space. And again, I can't necessarily speak for the straight community that goes to bars, but just your basic nightclub, I guess, is a better way of saying it, because a bar can be a family-based, but a pub. But I don't think bars, or straight bars, are safe spaces. It's like an LGBTQ bar is. It's not somewhere where they need to go because they don't have the opportunity, because they're the majority. And they're safe just by the fact that they are quote unquote normal. And they don't have the threat of violence, and they don't have the higher rates of suicide in youth and homelessness and with youth and the threat of violence or murder. Straight bars back, unless it's the prohibition here, straight bars never had police making raids just because of the sexual preference of the patrons inside. But so to circle back, it's just be respectful, and I'll say that to anyone. Gay, straight, bisexual, anything on the whole spectrum.
Can we talk a bit then more about your experiences first going out onto the scene? There's no way of saying this other than just saying it. Have you always been out?
I was going to the bars, earmuffs, but I was going to the bars underage, as many queer people did. And it got to the point with one of the early bars. I think I was ID'd by someone once, and the doorman said, "Oh God, no, she's been coming here for, she's of age. She's been coming here for ages." And I was exceptionally blessed in that the people that I was around at the time, and many of them were in their early 20s, and I was a teen, and a little later, and we were affectionately dubbed the number one party table. And the number one party table had a reserve table at one of the hot queer bars in town.
A reserve table. Wow.
Bill, we put the waiter, who I cannot remember his real name, but he was affectionately known as Laverne, and we put the waiter through college in Florida, I do believe, with the amount of tips. So yeah, it's good because there was so many of us, and we were en masse. And back then, you went out almost every night. You had the stamina to do it. Drinks were super cheap. And it was, it was very similar to what I'm saying. It's just a place to gather, with ourselves. And it has such fond memories. It was an amazing space. There was the Playpen Central, which was, sort of home. And then there was the Playpen South that had the Gurgle room. We won't even go into that.
No, do go into that.
Yeah, and it was a men's bar. And yes, I have the distinction.
Okay, I think I know then.
yeah, I have the distinction of having been in there and in the Gurgle room and in the men's baths and in the Shaggy Horse, which was men only. So, sometimes just blindly, boldly, bull and china shopped.
What do you mean? Just like walked in without being checked, or?
Well, I did once. Well, at the baths, it was like, hey, you're not allowed to, as I go racing by trying to find my gay male friend who was vastly time for him to go home. I remember once running out of the Central and going, through the lane and across the street because there was another gay bar, which is, as I mentioned, the Shaggy Horse, and running in there to find someone. And the person at the door was like, women aren't allowed. And someone went, oh, it says it's not a woman, it's Barb. She doesn't count. So I had a lot more leeway than I think your average woman did. There was at one point, one of the big bars in town, the Gandy Dancer, there was a problem with, and this is not uncommon in gay bars back then, there was a problem that all of a sudden there was so many straight people there. It was just, it starts and then there's more and more because so many straight women go there. So they don't have to be, have guys picking them up all night long or bugging them. So for them, it was a safe space as well, ironically, which kind of contradicts what we talked about a little earlier. And then by that, that brings straight men, looking for milkshakes, right? So,
these terms, milkshake, gurgle.
the Gurgle room is, if you're a gay man, you're nodding your head up and down, knowing exactly what I'm talking about. And milkshakes bringing all the boys to the yard that's the reference.
They
there.
certainly do. Yes.
Yes, and I've seen wonderful bars fall by the wayside. Because the gays, and I'm just using that phrase as opposed to, 2A LGBTQIA plus, would be like lemmings jumping off the cliff. And you'd see really great bars, fall by the wayside because all of a sudden it became a straight bar because women wanted safe spaces, men followed, straight men followed them there, and the gay or the queer people, for whatever reason,
voted with their wallets.
Either just gave up and moved on, or didn't even try to keep it a safe space for themselves.
But that's and like that, I can understand how that would happen in a time when there were lots of different bars, and you could just be like, well, I just won't go there anymore. But imagine being the owner and that happening to you, and just being like, well, what the fuck am I going to do now?
Yeah, and I knew a number, and I still do know a number of owners of bars in the city. And that was always, like the Gandy Dancer that happened. And that's where I got talking about this. It was one of the biggest gay bars in Vancouver. It was a magical place as well. It was so much fun. And that predates the Odyssey. But there ended up being so many straight women going there, which was bringing so many straight men, that the owners were really, really concerned with it becoming a straight bar. So they had a limit on how many women were allowed to come into the bar. So there was 20 allowed in. And memories are always fuzzy, but I'm quite sure this was it. There was 20 allowed in for a while. And, so all these, and straight women would go out earlier anyway than gay people. We're not even getting dressed until it's like 11 p.m., right? So, the gay women or the queer women or lesbians, would be denied access because they didn't get there in time for the 20. And I would go there and, the guy at the doors, the doorman that I would know, they go, because I remember one night specifically, he looked at me and he went, "You're a guy, right?" And I went, "Absolutely." He goes, "Okay." And let me in the door. It just, yep. So, it was a recipe that didn't work. So that didn't last for very long because for all the obvious
such a
reasons.
minefield if you're the security guard, because it's like, yeah.
And they ended up doing it at the Odyssey too. There was the women weren't allowed to enter through the back door.
That's horrible.
Except for me, and then there would be a couple of other, and then there was any of the women that were family would be able to come in through the back door. But yeah, it's because especially if you're a queer bar owner, and because there are, straight bar owners that have queer spaces. Yeah. But back then you put your personal finances and your heart and soul and sweat equity into creating this space for gay people. And through, you want it to be successful, and be careful what you wish for, because simply by being successful, that brings the straight women that are coming with, and usually it's because, they were invited by gay friends. Mm-mm. So it's kind of a dog chase tail, its own tail kind of a thing where, and so then again, that brings other people to the bar that, and all of a sudden they find themselves with an inordinate amount of straight people, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, this is just speaking to...
I mean, it's just you and me here. You can say...
Yeah, you, me, and everyone out there in podcast world. But, I'm not judging one way or the other that way, but this happens. And then all of a sudden you've got a straight club.
Yeah.
And it still happens.
I have not experienced that myself, but that must just be so frustrating if you're the owner or if you're the one who's cultivated this business and then all of a sudden it's out of your control. Yeah.
And you've created a great place. And that's the thing. It's like, oh my gosh, my bar is a success. And then you become a victim of your success.
That's why I'm so interested in what makes these spaces special and how you not only cultivate that, but maintain it. And I think probably maintaining is the thing that's the trickiest, right?
Yeah. There's been queer spaces or queer bars and nightclubs rather in Vancouver that have sort of ebb and flowed and gone away for a while and then came back, as gay, and then gone away and, came back.
Few and far between. The bar stayed as it was, but the clientele shifted. Is that what you're saying?
The clientele shifted to, and you'd notice it. Like, it's the evil. It's that green smoke that comes under the door. No, I'm kidding. It would be just, you'd notice over a period of time. And it's a fresh memory, because all of a sudden you'd be looking out on the dance floor and you could see the looks on some of the queer people in here going, are we in the minority here in a gay bar? It's like all of a sudden it'd be like, wow. We had a Tuesday night special at one gay bar that everyone was so excited about. And this was a gay bar that had lost its originally intended audience. I guess it's the politest way you can put this. And
infested with straights.
Yeah. I'm trying to be so delicate here without sounding like an asshole, an elitist gay snot. But, so they had a really super cheap Tuesday night drink thing. And everyone was excited and everyone started going. And then same thing happened. And you'd be across the street at a neighborhood queer pub. And there'd be this lineup that was halfway down the block. And they're all straight people. And the word on the street is very, very quick. It's like, oh, have you been to? Yeah. It's full of straight people. And that's not me. That's, people, you just hear it when you're talking within the community. Oh yeah, it's full of straight people. I'm not going to go. And, so you're right. It must be very, very frustrating as a queer person to create this space and spend all your money making it. And it's successful and you're excited. And all of a sudden that starts to change.
Whilst this is in my head, I wanted to ask you about your use of terms to describe the community. And so at times you've said queer, at times you've said gay, and you've talked about LGBTQIA plus da 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 da.
Yeah, the alphabet people.
that ever extending list, yeah. Which is not me saying I have a problem with that. Just, I want the memo when a letter is added. What's your relationship with those words?
I came out, as I said, young, and came out in the bars and in the community young. And back then, men and women, and again, now we have to be politically correct. So I guess we all gathered together. It's in Vancouver anyway. I mean, it was odd to go to other places and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is just, there was a lesbian bar here and it was the one and only called the Quadra, which was fabulous and a safe space for women. But I was gay. Everyone was gay. And then all of a sudden one day I was a lesbian. And I'm like, that sounds to me like something on a petri dish that you're looking under a mic, and it was gays and lesbians. And I'm like, where did this start? Why is it all of a sudden now broken down as gays and lesbians? Because we were all gay. We had a common bond as queer folk. And the bars were great. They were so mixed. And then slowly, things started, depending on the bar, like that was great about the Odyssey. It was mixed. But it was, so I don't know when it became gays and lesbians. And then it was, LGBT. And then it was LGBTQ. And then it was LGBTT. You know what I mean? And we've alphabet peopled. It is ridiculous to try every single time to have to say, 2S LGBTQIA plus.
But because you say, so for anyone who doesn't know, 2S is Two-Spirit, which is
Two-Spirit,
Canadian,
right? Which is the indigenous, anywhere where there's indigenous peoples, in North America, who have so much and bring so much to the table. But I just at the beginning I didn't like the term queer. I got why we were starting to say it. It's to reclaim it and make it our own and take away that nasty connotation about it. And I use it now regularly because it is so generic. It's like queer is now what gay was way back then. Because, and especially nowadays, the spectrum is so broad. There's so many people that don't fit under the umbrella of saying they're gay, and they're not. And if you're not comfortable with something, call yourself whatever you can call yourself a donkey. I don't care what it is, as long as many people as possible feel included. Yeah. But having said that, we're starting to really label a lot. Now I am a cis woman, as opposed to a woman, and you're all women, trans women are women, but it's there's a lot of labeling.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating. Like when I was growing up, everyone was like, oh, I'm not into labels. I just don't want to label things. And potentially that's because of like internalized homophobia or queerphobia. And they just were like, I just don't want to have to say it out loud. And that was the actual issue rather than the fact that they didn't want to label things. But now it feels like everyone's in such a hurry to label themselves and
very much
label
so.
Things.
Sadly.
Well, is it sadly though? I don't know.
Well,
it's just different.
I'm thinking sadly in terms of labeling all the negative connotations that brings up. If it is helping people, because I do think in some ways some of these labels have introduced words that have made people curious, so they have looked up non-binary or gender fluid or transgender, where they might not have known, in the greater populace, where they might not have known about them, and that sexuality is so fluid and crosses so many different platforms and levels. We as humans are a wild bunch, and there's, you can't label us, and because you can't label us, you kind of have to label us. You know what I mean? There's, it's an odd juxtaposition, but so way back when, I still prefer to look at myself as a gay woman. I find that phrase makes me feel good. It makes me feel empowered. Lesbian doesn't necessarily make me feel bad or good. I'm also a lesbian, quite obviously. Last I looked in the mirror anyway. But but gay woman is what I'm most comfortable with. And I guess ultimately that's what labels are, is what are you most comfortable with? And what makes you feel best.
Yeah.
But so I change it up. I'll say LGBTQ plus, because that's a bit shorter, and it's plus is, but it's also denying some people validation, right?
Well, the plus.
So I'll
the
say
plus.
the plus, right? So I find queer covers everything. I'm a middle child. I don't want anyone to feel left out. So I try to sort of bridge, as many or gaps as possible. So it's interesting though that you would have noticed that.
And it's maybe like, I mean, we're never going to get to a point where everyone agrees on everything, right? So like, there's probably always going to be some kind of residual knee-jerk reaction that people have because of that word. But the reason that I love it is because it is so inclusive, because it is like, hey, we're all in this together, and I'm not going to accidentally leave you off this long acronym.
Yeah, it's this long acronym, but that's about it, right? It felt really weird coming out of my mouth when I first started using it, because at the very beginning, and I'm old enough now to fully understand the violence that was behind that word way back when, and there are still elderly white gay gentlemen who don't like it, probably because they had effing queer thrown at them, with all the violence that implies. But like anyone, the more you use the word, the less it is. And that was as a community as a whole using queer. At the beginning, it was those radicals and they're, that are using this. And now it's common and it's simpler. And I love how we own it. We took that one back. But who knows what's going to come down the pike next? Right?
So what words should we reclaim next? Rug muncher?
Rug muncher. But rug muncher is such a great, just what is it? Poo pirate. I mean, come on.
I've never heard that one. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Fudge packer.
Oh, yeah, fudge packer. Definitely know that.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's funny because I haven't thought of that. I used to be able to rip off about 20 of them like that. Just some of them were anal. Oh, gosh, I can't remember. Something cowboys. Rectal Rangers was a good one. Rectal Rangers.
I've got to write these down. But bum bandits is one.
Bum bandits, yeah. Bum bandits, poo pirates, rectal rangers. Pirates is kind of fun.
So weird, isn't it? Like when people try to weaponize something that is just like what you do, and you're like, yeah, I do stick my dick in an asshole. Yeah, and
I've tickled the crap. Sure.
Sometimes it happens. Yeah,
I'm a fish farmer. I mean, whatever.
Oh, but are you? Maybe we shouldn't get into this. But how do you feel about
That's a whole different podcast.
How do you feel about the term fish then? When people say fishy?
Well, it's invariably, obviously, this wouldn't be here. This phrase wouldn't be here if there wasn't some truth to it. And I know there's probably some feminist that is just cringing at me saying this right now. You should be standing up for us. But, it's the same with saying, cheese under foreskin, kind of that smell, right? So.
But that is cheesy.
Yeah. So, sure.
I mean, I can't speak about fish.
I prefer to speak about hygiene. It ain't quite as fishy as all that. Let's just put it that way. And I'm quite sure it ain't as cheesy as all that from your side of the tracks. Wow, did this escalate quickly?
Just asking the important questions here. That's my job.
Asking for a friend. Because what if there's a red snapper and there's this or that, and it's just like,
red snapper. Oh, I'm learning so much from you today.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, red snapper goes way back. It's like I'm here all week. Try the red snapper. It's what was it that we were talking about earlier? I wanted to make a comment about. Oh, the rainbow flag. With the rainbow flag, Gilbert Baker, who I had the opportunity to meet on a number of occasions and enjoyed enjoyed his company. He and I got along very, very well. We went on a boat cruise once where we bonded. But Gilbert, in creating the rainbow flag, was very much, the rainbow flag was to be inclusive. Each color of the rainbow, whether it's the 6 or the 8 or 9, depending on who you're talking with historically, represented a feeling. It represented, it was orange, it was adjectives, but not specific to people or people's color. And now we have rainbow flags that are all over the place. Now, and that one, I was just like, how did that happen? Because again, going back to that labeling, and you'll hear from certain segments of our community say, well, I wasn't represented in the flag. And I said, the whole point of how Gilbert made the flag was so that it was inclusive to absolutely everyone. It wasn't for, white bears or, black queens or, Asian twinks or whatever, stereotypes you want to come up with. It was for everyone, across the whole spectrum of the rainbow. And now they I wanted to be included. And so I fought with it, back and forth within myself. And I'm like, well, but you are included in that original design. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It was specifically made in such a way so as to not imply color in terms of a skin color. Mm-mm. But having said that, if it makes, is it going to hurt me? Is it going to keep me up at night? If a new flag is invented or things are added onto it to make someone feel more included? Yeah. I
have a theory that it's the flag industry that's behind all of this. They just want to sell more flags every year.
The conspiracy flagists. Flagulating themselves.
Yeah, they're like, how can we increase our flag sales? I know what, we'll tell them all that there's a new flag design.
This is the conspiracy you come up with. What we didn't know. Oh, gosh. No. What a crazy bunch of humans we are, right? Regardless of what your preference is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point that you make, though. I'm fascinated by the history of the flag and like okay, so I've got my information from Wikipedia, and Wikipedia has let me down in the past. So please tell me if I'm wrong. But so the original flag was 9 stripes.
Yeah, there was black in there and brown in there.
And then because there was a shortage of the fabric of some colors, they were just like, let's just do 6. Yeah. Which I love.
Sometimes the answers are just like, it's not some big convoluted thing, people. We're not curing a disease. It literally is just, I asked my father once, I said, why did you name me Barbara? Expecting a lovely story about, and he goes, it was one of the few names that really worked with Snelgrove. And I'm like, wow, that's a little anticlimactic. I had this romantic vision in my head of where Barbara came from. And just because it worked. Just because it worked. I'm like, great.
There's something really reassuring and disappointing about parents who are solid and reliable, right?
Yeah, right. I want wonderful, wonderful parents. I was very, very blessed and able to come out in a very relaxed atmosphere. And of course by that, and I've said this often in terms of speaking to LGBTQ advocacy and acceptance, is that it is a baby step process. It's not. I know we want it to happen overnight, but it isn't going to. but it's getting better every single generation. And that because that generation that grew up with, like my niece and nephew did in our household, seeing that not only did it not matter that I was, a gay woman, there we go, well, or lesbian or whatever you want to label me, but that we could laugh about it without even ever, that pause of uncomfortability. It was just natural because I was just another member of the family. So if they see that when they're growing up as children and little sponges, they're going to grow up with a healthy understanding of and who gives a flying F about what, who they sleep with in the bedroom. And then they'll pass that to their kids and so on and so on. So now we're seeing generations that are, saying they're gender fluid in record numbers, remarkable numbers, that we have never seen before. Because it's happening. It's just happening slower than some.
So I wanted to ask, having grown up on the scene and having experienced the scene for a number of years, what differences have you seen take place? I know you spoke earlier about it being far more integrated when you first came out. What else?
Yes, it was far more integrated, and I think that is starting to come full circle. But and again, I can only speak to Vancouver because every city has, its own particular quirks and good or bad that make up. For instance, Vancouver is exceptionally multicultural. It's an amazing blend. If we look at it in just from the positive side of things, it's wonderful. I'm very, very blessed to live in a corner of the world where there are so many different types of people. You're not asked to change when you come here. You're asked to bring the best of you in your cultures. And that makes for an incredible melting pot. And that plus more acceptance. I mean, we still, I'm not saying it's a beautiful world. Vancouver has had, as recently as a year ago, attacks on queer people. But I'm seeing more of a mix of queer and straight people. And again, we don't even know after the last 2 years. But I've just in speaking to a couple. I mean, there are some bars that are very specifically queer. Like the Pump Jack and things like that. And
anywhere you gurgle, basically, yeah.
Yeah, anywhere you gurgle. But there are more now. I've seen more bars than nightclubs. And I do believe that there is a difference. It's it goes like pub, bar, nightclub. You know what I mean?
So what's the difference between a pub and a bar?
It's a good question. And it's I don't quite know because a pub in where you're from, right, is, it's the local watering hole. And it's around every corner practically. And here we don't have that. I wish we did because, little neighborhood ones are wonderful. I think a pub is more intimate than a bar.
Okay.
A pub closes at midnight and a bar closes at 2 or 3. You know what I mean? There's just fine little differences.
Okay.
And so right now, I think we have more the Fountainhead pub. I'd call it a bar. Are you going to the bar? Yeah, where are you going? Oh, the Fountainhead. But it's actually called the Fountainhead Pub, so we're mincing words here. But I do believe, and a nightclub is just like a big, the circuit party and the, whatever.
Smoke machines. I'm right there with you.
Lots of sweaty bodies on the dance floor and it's open till God only knows what time. So we have lost a lot of those locally in Vancouver and, and totally for the past 2 years. And as we start to reopen somewhat, the local bars, we could almost call them pub splash bars, are far more prevalent. And far more prevalent. We also have a thriving community of pop-ups, I guess we would call them now. These could be placed, and I mean, and I've seen that in numerous cities. San Francisco used to be famous for that, where there'd be places where it's okay, you come into an agreement with a bar or a restaurant or just a space.
Yeah.
and make it a queer space, and it's reoccurring at that same location over, a period of times, or bars that want to keep the opportunity to have packed joints every night, have women's night or industry night, or, it's like, stripper night or whatever. And some may be straight events, some may be queer events, but, there's, so here it's, just because we have lost so many of our local watering holes over the years, it's an expensive city to operate a bar. It's a very expensive city, rents and leases. And liquor licensing has gotten a little bit better, but it's certainly not just Vancouver that has issues with liquor licensing. So, there was a while where you couldn't just open a bar. You almost had to buy a pre-existing bar. The liquor license went along with it. And the liquor license was more valuable than the real estate you had. Right? So that is, I'm not up on my liquor licensing laws.
You didn't prepare for this interview? What?
No, I know, right? But hey, we got happy hour back. I'm good about that one. But I guess getting back to, gosh, we really do go on these long-winded tangents, don't we? But I guess getting back to it is, I find that there are more straight people in the bar. And I'm going to be contradictory to what you talked about earlier, but that's not a bad thing. It means that there is that acceptance from both sides, right? And some of these bars, it's like you come in and it's a hodgepodge. It's a mix. Maybe it's because, and speaking just to the Davie Village section, that queer community in Vancouver, there are others, but that one in particular, there's so many bars all on one strip. And it is within the downtown core, and it is close to a hospital and hotels. So you get people that just wander onto the street and, we see rainbow flags up all over the place, and come into like the Fountainhead Pub, they'll come in for lunch, and everyone's very welcoming. Everyone's always like, well, you just walked into the, you have no, it's like an elderly couple. You have no idea. You just thought you were coming in for a beef dip. Well, you are, sugar.
I'm glad you made that joke because I was going. I held back.
Try the red snapper. And often they'll look around and no, they're fine, or it's like, oh dear, we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. Well, actually, you are, but yeah. So I don't know. They're ever evolving, and quite frankly, and this is sort of sad for me. Maybe it was inevitable, but the bars, have seen less and less people going to them pre-pandemic because we have all of the grinders and the Tinders and the, whatever, all these various dating sites that have come up that have, started to see a decrease. We have more community centers. We have more alternative queer spaces. But it was such a huge part of our history and who we are was and is our queer bars. For some people, it was the only release they had. It was the only safe space. It was the only place they could be themselves. And I guess, now with us, having the success of, in some areas, being more widely accepted, that's a wonderful thing. But it's sad to see that era start to slip away, and there's going to be generations that won't know what you're talking about. That they'll go to bars. I think there'll always be bars, but they won't look at it the way you did, because it won't need to be that sanctuary, and that is a good thing.
Do you have any memories from Vancouver clubbing or from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories. Go to lostspacesPodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me everything that you got up to. Everything. I want to know everything, I promise. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. And whilst you're there, also make sure to follow Barb on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. She has the same handle at megamouthmedia. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Groomed Boys, and is also playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.